So I'm recording this on September 5th. Yesterday, September 4th, Sigma announced a brand new lens. I believe it's for Sony, for Leica, and I believe there's going to be a Canon version. I mean, it would be smart for them to make a Nikon version as well, but I'm not sure if they're doing that. With that said, the lens that they announced is a 28-105 f2.8. It is a DG-DN art lens. Now, this is like Sigma's high-end lens. It's got all their top quality stuff in it, but it's a telephoto at 2.8. Okay, now the interesting thing is I have seen some discussions on social media about why do they not go with the 24-105, like Canon's big lens, fairly heavy lens, is a 24-105, whereas Sigma's doing a 28-105. Both are the high-end lenses. Both are 2.8. I believe, yes, both have image stabilizer in it. I believe that the Sigma one has it in it. I'd have to double check if it does, but I'm fairly sure it does. I'm just looking at the specs right now. Maybe it doesn't have it in it. No, I don't think it does. So the Sigma one does not have stabilizer in it. Let me just check one other place just to confirm if it does or not. I don't think the Sigma one has image stabilizer in it. Now, the interesting thing, here's the interesting thing. People are saying, why do they not go with the 28? Well, first of all, why create what the main camera manufacturers are doing? Why not create something more unique, something more affordable? That's what Sigma and Tamron and all these third-party lens manufacturers are doing. Yes, some of them make the lenses for the main camera manufacturers, but on their own branded lenses, it doesn't make sense to mimic exactly what exists for the main manufacturer. So I just want to cover some minor details here, okay? Now, the 28-105 from Canon, just to go with that as the comparison, does have image stabilizer inside the lens. It is an 82 millimeter filter. The Sigma is also an 82 millimeter filter. The aperture goes to f22 from 2.8. Same thing with the Sigma, okay? Now, the minimum focus distance on the Canon is 17.7 inches or 45 centimeters. The minimum on the Sigma is 40 centimeters or 15.8 inches. Now, what that means is even though the telephoto length is actually narrower, starting at 28 millimeters on the Sigma, it actually can focus closer than the Canon can with its 24 millimeter lens. And what else is there? Let's see if I can get some other interesting information. Number of diaphragm blades on the Canon is 11. The number on the Sigma is 12. So there's some pretty dramatic differences here between the two. Okay, there are, on the Canon, 23 elements in 18 groups. Sigma has 18 elements in 13 groups. Now here is the kicker. Let's go to weight. The weight of, let's look at dimensions before we do this. The dimensions of the lens for the Sigma version, and it varies from camera mount to camera mount, or lens mount to lens mount. Canon versus Sony versus Leica, etc. They're all different mounts, so they're going to be slightly different. But in general, just to I'll give you the Sony comparison because I don't have specs on what they're coming out with for Canon, but the Sony version, I want to make sure I match this correctly. I'm going to go in millimeters. The Sony version is 87.8 millimeters by 159.9 millimeters, whereas the Canon is 88.5 by 199. So the Canon is much larger, most likely because there's image stabilizer in there. So there has to be more hardware in there, right? So that is probably why. So here's the kicker now, the weight difference. Let's go with the weight difference. The weight of the Canon lens is 2.9 pounds or 1.3 kilograms. Okay, the weight of the Sigma lens, I got to convert this to pounds. The weight of the Sigma lens is 2.18 pounds, 2 kilograms, or 0.99 kilograms. So you're talking a pretty big difference in weight. Again, that's because you've got more glass in the Canon. You've got the image stabilizer hardware in the Canon. So what Sigma has done is they've created a lens that practically mimics one of the most popular Canon lenses, but they are providing it much cheaper. You're talking $1,500, give or take, versus Canon's, which is $3,000. So half the price of the Canon lens, and you can get a lens, if you don't need the image stabilizer, you can get a lens that'll probably give you just as good of quality as the Canon, or maybe just slightly under the Canon quality, depending on how you look at it, if you are a pixel peeper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't personally own any Sigma lenses. I do have one Tamron lens. I shoot Nikon, by the way. I do have one Tamron lens, and it is the, what is it, the 35, I think, to 150. And that's a 2 to 2.8 lens. It's a variable. I love that lens. I use that for my proposal photography, mainly. But this is a nice lens. This is a nice lens. I don't have any Sigma lenses, but that is a nice lens. And half the price of the Canon comparable. Again, if you don't need image stabilizer, then don't complain about losing the 4 millimeters of difference at the wide end. Because again, even though it's just slightly narrower, right? Slightly narrower on the Sigma version, you can actually focus closer too. So there is that. Anyway, just breaking down this difference between the two, just a little bit of a rant here based on what I'm seeing on social media. I thought it was interesting. Wanted to share my thoughts on it. If you are a Canon shooter, which again, I think it was just announced for Canon, but this lens is available also for pre-order for Leica and for Sony. Might be worth checking out if you're in the if you need a lens like this. I'll share a link to where you could pre-order all these in the description for this episode if you're interested. I'll also share a link to the Canon comparable, whatever it's comparing it to, so you can see that too.